Hey everyone, Kurt Holfeder here, and this is going to be a quick video in regards to the footwork turns, or the first two turns, as well as how they incorporate to footwork and the sword regarding to Fiore's system. I will also be starting this from the basis of how a position is going to be, how to take the position to kind of emphasize these a little bit more, what you get out of them, I think, and why we are constantly transitioning from this position to different perspectives and directions in it. So the title of this is about moving the mountain and building the mountain, and that's because all about the structure in which we have for our legs and etc. So with that being the case here, the first thing I'll talk about is the stance. In the Getty, you see a lot of positioning where the body is like this. You see this within dagger, wrestling, armor, unarmored, sword in one hand. It can be positioned backwards and forward, which is ultimately, if I'm facing this way and I turn into this position, I'm doing the same thing. I'm not talking about the upper body, I'm talking about this lower body position and how we are constantly allowing ourselves to be in this leg structure build up here. This allows for grounding, which is, if we're coming into something, my rear leg is the portion that is allowing me to connect into this. This front leg is just a balance point. I can move, it's position wise. It also allows for structure 4, where I have projection. It allows my upper body in all directions to be able to push and move on this. I don't believe this is pushing off or on our toes. I believe that we're really just talking about exemplifying this position. I position myself just by feet shoulder width apart to the shoulders and step back. That's all it is. There is no weight in the knee. In fact, I feel it mostly up in the upper quad area and in the calf. I believe this is really the case here because I can pick this up and I can pick this up with ease in regards to footwork. If my body weight was all over the top leg, I couldn't pick up this leg. I could hop, but that's not necessarily, I think, a beneficial way of being able to do footwork. So this leads us into the types of work that you can do with this. And there's two types of footwork that he speaks about, well, three, but they all speak to two motions, and that is your acressere and your dicressere. So acressere, dicressere, and then it goes for both sides. Acressere, dicressere. Point right here, acressere is not just a forward linear, it has the potential to be offline. And it can go forward, diagonal, in all directions. The dicressere has the same potential, however, I believe it to be in the opposite direction. And here's the reason why. I can go here. I just did the same thing as far as moving to the side, but using the rear leg. Did the same thing, diagonal back and straight back. If I wanted to go backwards this way, towards my rear right, that's going to take us into our next footwork, which is tornare, passare. And I say that because ultimately, we're not trying to step like this. So I can come back. It's just utilizing tornare, set, passare, and then we're set back in. This is all a way not to cross-leg ourselves. So with those two things right there, and now it goes into the two turns we've talked about. There's three. The ones we've talked about so far have been Mezza Volta and Volta stabile. Volta stabile being the first one, which I see it as much along the lines of just being able to turn forward and back this way. And you notice I can be looking this way, turn, turn, turn. I can turn this way. This is done by allowing the balls of my foot to be really in the grounding of it all, and allowing my hip and my foot to pivot at the same time. I say this in class, the knee is encapsulated, and it's held prisoner by the ankle and your hip. Trying to do these turns with the hip is going to tear the knee. So we have to allow ourselves to move at the same time. The sword has got, it can also be done with these two turns as well. We have volta stabile, or we're coming in this way here, right? So I'm coming forward, this is extending forward, and I'm putting myself downward. If I stand with my feet like this, these weights right are my measuring points, and I just step back. As long as I am cutting within that structure, my legs can keep in this position. Okay? And that goes for both sides. When I start to bring the sword over, again, because we're talking about allowing your feet to pivot, this goes into the next form of footwork, which is your Mezza Volta. In this case, turning and passing, turning and passing. I find it to be the same way going backwards. I'll turn and just traverse back. Turn and traverse forward. Turn and traverse forward. Turn and traverse back. Okay? With the sword, you're seeing the same thing. From here, I can, from this position here, if I come across this line, then I have to be able to, I'm just trying not to kick the weight. So back in line here, good. If I'm going to cut across the body, where my blade's on this side, standing here is not very stable. So coming across and passing into this point. Now the sword's outside of where my feet are at, and again, if I step forward, right? So this is a way for me to use, this is volta stabile with Mezza Volta footwork. I can also use Mezza Volta sword work, which I believe to be, I'm here, through. In this case right here, I'm not traveling just through and then up, because it's only using the sword in one dimension. Yes, it's passing on both sides, but it's coming down and coming right back up. With Mezza Volta, I can turn and turn and turn. And each time, the connection is out here and it stops. So, with that being the case, we can mix these two, where using volta stabile footwork with Mezza Volta handwork and Mezza Volta footwork with volta stabile footwork. I'm sorry, volta stabile handwork. So just like before, I was talking about Mezza Volta, right? If I'm going to traverse outside these lines, as far as structure, I'll pass forward and I'll pass back. And this is just using volta stabile handwork with Mezza Volta footwork. I may change this, doing it again, in this case where I can cut. And you'll notice, even though I'm here and I've turned over a little bit, I start to come, my foot is not turned outside the structure. And because of that, the sword will have to break and come right back down. Okay. I'm not talking about the specifics of these cuts yet. There's lots of different types of, there's 3 different types that they talk about. But regardless of them all, they are structured into the 3 formats that we really know about, which is your Oberhau, which they call colpe fendente, you have your sweeps, in this case, not necessarily Unterhal like you might see in the German context, but where you see Sultani, you're sweeping upwards, and then your Mezzani, which are your cutting sideways ones. And then the third blow, which they just consider, I'm sorry, the seventh of all of these right here is the thrust. So you have 3 cuts and 1 thing as far as thrusting, which Fiore says is specifically in the center. And you can employ all of these with those types of footwork. So just play with this. Quick drill that might work well for you. Is if we're talking about Mezza Volta, so here, Mezza Volta, Mezza Volta. And then utilizing thrust, thrust. Okay? So one more time from the side. Mezza Volta, and you can even use this forward and backwards. Thrust. And then we can do Volta stabile footwork with Mezza Volta handwork. The other one was with Volta stabile handwork. So Volta stabile footwork, Mezza Volta handwork. And then from here, I can use the Volta stabile handwork okay, so play with that. Use that in conjunction with the feet and the turns. And as always, train well, fight on.